Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the display property and how we can go about using that to override the functionality that is there by default and what all we can do with it. Okay, so let me turn here to the screen and you can see we have our index.html that we've been working with. Let me go ahead and show you a few different things we can do here. Right here above these nav a links, I think what I'm going to do here is we're just going to do nav a, and we're going to give it the display property. Now by default these are inline, so if I just do an inline here, you can see that nothing changes. These are inline. Okay. The other thing that we could do is we can make these block. Okay, by default, a div is a block level element, so we could actually make these block. And if we do, we can see right there that they do indeed break to a new line because now they're treated the same as a block level element. So they're kind of like a div instead of an inline element like a span. Okay, now one thing that I can do with the block is I can actually say margin top. You know what, let's do margin bottom. And I'm going to say margin bottom 12 pixels. And we'll refresh that. And that gives us margin on the bottom of all of these. If I switch this back to, let's say, inline, then what's going to happen is you can't hardly tell, but the margin of 12 pixels is being ignored on the top and bottom of an inline style. We could do margin left. Let's do margin right. We could do left and right margin with an inline element, but we cannot do top and bottom. And if you think about that, that makes sense because we don't want to be adding margin to the top and bottom, because if we had another inline element, let's just put another inline element there. So let's go to the index.html because I want to show you exactly what I mean here. After this last a tag, I'm going to put a span in here. And this span, let's just put some text. Some text. We'll be real creative. So now these inline blocks are in line with this some text. If there were margin top or bottom on here, that may push these to where they're not in line with that span that we have there. So let's go back to the this, and let's just, there's a hybrid though that we can do, that we can say we want this to be an inline block. Now if you look, you notice that when I refresh, this all got pushed down, and the reason it got pushed down is because now with an inline block, margin top and bottom are now recognized and used because this is a hybrid model between inline and block. It's called inline-block. And it makes them not break down like a block level, but the margin and spacing and things like that can be used as if they were block level. So you can add margin to the top and bottom. And there are times that you're going to want to use all three of these. Let me show you another one though. I'm going to get rid of this, and we'll keep the margin right for now. So let's just get rid of that, and then let me show you one more display that property that we can do. Let's look down at our indented paragraph here. So if I go back up here to this indented, I can do display none. And if I do that, you can see that it completely removes it from the DOM. Now it is still there. I could find it here. It's right here. You can see it here, but if I click on it, the display is none. And so that goes back and forth there because that's a paragraph that would be block instead of none. And so let me just show you something else with that. If I have another element below this, you know what, let's make this our footer. And this is an awesome footer. Okay, if I make that our footer, you can see that with the display none, this actually removes completely from the DOM. It doesn't even take up space, and now this actually moves up to take its place. If I go ahead and turn display none off, you can see that my footer is now back down at the bottom, and this takes up space. So display none removes it from the DOM, and it doesn't take up space. There may be times that you want to hide something on the screen where it does take up space. So let's look at that really quick just to show you kind of both ways of doing that. So that's display none. Oftentimes, and we haven't gotten into this, but oftentimes you will end up using display none, and then later with JavaScript you can change this to show up if they click a button or something else. So you'll have stuff loaded in the DOM that they can't see, and then it'll show up. It could be an error message on a form field or something like that, and then it'll show up if it needs to show up. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you what happens. Another way of doing this is we could do opacity, and we could do 0. Oops, not O, we do 0. Now what happens is the opacity is 0, so you can't see it, but it's still in the DOM and it's still taking up the space as if it were there, okay? And we could actually change that opacity to be something like 0.4, and then you can start kind of seeing it. So we can kind of go through different opacity settings there. So you can hide stuff with opacity if you want it to still take up space. There are other ways to do it, but I just wanted to show you mainly the display and show you that we can overwrite the default behavior of elements, even though a div is usually a div would be a block level. We can in fact make a div an inline element if we want, or even an inline block element. Okay, so the difference is inline doesn't break to a new line. The block elements do break to a new line. Block elements also allow you to do padding on the top and bottom along with margin. Inline do not allow you to do that. And you can do a hybrid called inline-block where it doesn't break down to a new line, but it will respect the margin top and bottom and padding top and bottom. So I hope that makes sense, because we're going to use some of this in the next video. We're going to talk about positioning. So I'll see you there.